Hey, I'm Tom.
And I'm John.
And we're the co-founders of Handsome Frank Illustration Agency.
In this series, we'll be sitting down and talking to our illustrators, finding out more about them, their artistic process, and the creative industry we work in.
Welcome to our podcast. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Handsome Frank podcast.
Hey, Tom.
We are sat in a very, very sunny room. We're actually feeling a bit sleepy, but we are wide awake.
Yeah, it's lovely. We're sat here by the fire in rural Norfolk, having come down to have a little chat with David Sparshott.
Yeah, absolutely. It's lovely. We've been a bit busy. We've been recruiting for another project manager. So we've been getting lots of nice submissions from people. Randomly, I've had one submission from someone that went to my school and another person who just so happens to live at the end of my road. So it's weird how that kind of small world, how those things happen.
Yeah, it's been really nice. It's been a really good response so far. And we're very excited about bringing someone else on the team. So that's been keeping us very busy. I don't know. I feel like this year is, we're nearly end of February already.
Going quickly.
And it's kind of flying past. But for today, we've been recording a podcast and had a really good conversation with David, who's someone we've known and worked with for the best part of a decade, I think.
Yeah, I didn't realise it had been that long, actually. We're getting old, aren't we?
We are, and it's really interesting because a big part of what we talk about on this podcast and why we wanted to come and sit down and visit David was the journey he's been on recently, having left London and moved out and actually moved to somewhere really remote where he and his family are completely off the grid and kind of on the way to becoming totally self-sufficient.
Absolutely. Well, enjoy the podcast, everyone.
Yeah, so we're sat in a cottage in Massingham, just outside or near King's Lynn.
Yeah, we're nearer Fakenham than Kinston. Yeah, Fakenham, Swaffham area.
And to introduce our guest, we're with David Sparshott. Afternoon, David.
It's early afternoon, isn't it? Yeah. You had a nice trip up.
Yeah, we've driven up. So so Tom got the train to Cambridge this morning.
Yeah, I think I left the house at 8:15.
So early start for Tom.
3-hour journey.
I met him at Cambridge, grabbed some coffee, jumped in the car. It's about an hour and a half.
Yeah, and, it's pretty easy, isn't it, from there?
Here we are. I don't usually do this, but I kind of stole a bit from your website, and I've got a bit of an introduction because we never introduce illustrators
Very
properly.
Professional.
I know. Here we go.
If I've written that down, John, I'm not sure how much. I don't know.
It's been heavily edited. So,
yeah.
David Sparshott is a UK-based illustrator who graduated from the Bristol School of Art and Design in 2006. He uses traditional medium, including graphite and coloured pencil, to retain a balance between playful observations and detailed line work. It says here based in Suffolk, but as we know, no longer. We've crossed the border.
Now, John, yeah.
Crossed the border.
There'll be trouble with you if you get that wrong.
David has worked for a diverse range of clients, including the New York Times, General Electric, The Ride, Rafa, Magma Books, and many more. So that's your introduction, mate.
I like that. That's a good intro.
And we've worked together for...
I looked that up the other day, and I think it's 2014, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
maybe 13, 14.
You will be one of our longest resident illustrators.
I think so, but I remember when we first spoke, you'd already been established for a good few years.
I think I pursued you for a bit, David.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say...
Or was it the other way round?
It didn't seem like you were desperate, I'll be honest.
I love how these stories come out.
Well, yeah,
the signing story, because we don't always remember them.
The origin stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you kind of like, I've got 10 minutes spare. You just want to kind of like meet me and go for a drink. It wasn't like courting me or anything like that. So,
I remember being aware of your work. There was a Diego Maradona print that I remember. Was it in Creative Review? Did it feature?
Yeah, it may have done. So that was I was working with a collective called Toy.
Yes.
It was a guy called Chris Gray, who's a graphic designer, and he set up just a kind of collection of people who he liked to work with. Most of them, I think, were based in Manchester. And I guess it was sort of like an illustration agency, but more of like, we'll take work on together, and then, you know, we'll kind of do this project between us. So that Maradona print was from a job they did for Umbro. Because I think at the did he get you?
The cat has bit me.
Yeah, be careful with that. I think Umbro had just moved their headquarters up to Manchester.
Okay, that rings a bell.
They had contacted him to do some murals in the offices.
Yeah.
So it was a real nice mix of styles of illustrators that were working on it. So that was one of the hand god. It was like the big hand picking Maradona up.
I think that's my earliest memory of your work.
Was that one of your first sort of big projects that you got?
I wouldn't call it a big project, but I think it was a good it's a good learning experience. It was, it's nice work to do, and I think at that time when you're kind of starting to maybe be able to work full time doing illustration work, it was probably a really, really good stepping stage between there and where we are now, and that's obviously led on to you seeing that, and I'm sure it's one of those things that's been seen probably by quite a few people by now. But yeah, I think that was an important stage, and quite a nice bit of work. Travelled up to Manchester, actually, we did it all by hand. So there was a group of us, 5 or 6, who were actually in the offices, doing the work, and then hanging out in the evenings. It was a really nice thing to do.
That seems to be something that happens less now, but we used to get lots of briefs for sort of hand drawn murals, actually going in and installing something physically, which we seem to do less of these days. I'm not sure if it's more of a reluctance on artists to work on location, or let clients asking for it less.
Yeah, I don't know, because I used to do quite a lot of it, but it was mainly just done through people, like acquaintances, through other work, through illustration work or graphic design work that you'd meet, and it's like, oh, can you come in and do this for us? It wasn't really, I guess, commissioned client-based work, because I worked quite a while with YCN in London, who I don't know really what they're doing now, but they used to be this kind of bridge between students' work and kind of professional graphic design work, and I kind of did almost like an internship, but that kind of thing with them for almost a year, and I did quite a few wall drawings, and it's a really nice way of working. And I did a few for Howie's as well, the clothing brand.
Oh yeah, I remember the Howie stuff.
I did 3 or 4 in their shop.
Must be nice to work at that larger scale as well.
Yeah, it's totally different, because I would basically do the pencil drawing in the sketchbook, and then enlarge it on a projector onto a wall. So and it actually translates really, really well.
So did you travel around with a projector?
Did I travel? Yeah, I did for a bit, but I mean, to call it travelling around I think it's quite generous. I had one of the like an OHP one, the ones you plug into a laptop. Yeah. It's a nice way of working, but I've not done anything like that in years.
And how was, because I was looking at some of your early work. I remember there was some work you did for Tropicana. How has your process changed over the work? Because your style has evolved, but how has that translated to the actual process?
Yeah, I think the process led this. What came first? The change in the process then completely dictated what the style, has turned out like. So I used to do. I mean, all of my drawing used to be just completely freehand. A lot of observational drawing, which again just I don't really get to do a lot of anymore. But I got a job with the Times doing the football, and I think that was basically the turning point, because I was sent to a Premier League football game on a Saturday, go in as a photographer, and I was there to basically document the game.
I love that series.
In an illustrative style. And so it was kind of like almost like a 6 block comic strip to be showing what went on in the game. But because of the time constraints on it, it had to be finished by the next morning. So I had 24 hours from travelling to the game, getting back home, and then sending a rough, and then doing the final piece.
Were you actually working whilst the game was going on?
So I had a day photographer's pass. So I was pitch side with a big Nikon camera and the lens.
Nice.
I'd never used a camera. Literally borrowed one off one of the Times staff photographers, and just like, you'll be right. Just you kind of focus like that and press click. I was like, okay, yeah, easy.
Yeah.
It wasn't. As Tom's a vlogger, it's like, and because the work had to be done so quick, to translate those photographs into a drawing, a loose line drawing, it just was impossible to make that. So I started basically composing it, like comping it on the computer from the photos, and then using that as a basically I would kind of light box from the printout of that, take the important like where the eyes go, where the chin goes, that kind of thing, and then doing my drawing on top of it.
Okay.
And that just sped it up like 3 or 4 times. I could do it quicker doing it that way. And I guess what that did to the actual work, I think it gave it a lot more weight to it, because with loose drawing, I think it has a place, but in an editorial sense, I'm not sure it kind of, I don't know, carried enough,
conveys enough. Yeah,
exactly. So from that point, that's kind of then how I've continued to work, because then, so someone would say, oh, I saw this work in the Times and I really like how you did those portraits. It's like, okay, well, I did those portraits by doing this technique. So I can't then take a step back and say, well, actually, I used to do them all completely freehand and it's going to look slightly different. So I just kind of went with it. And now it's, I found a really good process of producing the drawings that I'm really happy with. But it's definitely separated those two.
It's
styles
interesting
out.
how one job and the constraints of that job drove the style change. And even now you take a lot of reference photographs, right? So you yourself, you take photos of yourself in different poses, and I see you in your work.
Yeah, we do. Mm-hmm. It's quite interesting. Yeah. We see the illustration and we can go, oh, that's David.
Yeah, so like most of the stuff where there's a figure, I'll just like act it out and get it photographed. So I'm making really cheesy stock photography.
So who's your photographer?
Well, Sarah does it, or I set it up myself, like on a timer.
So do you just
run back, look at it again, and
hundreds of photographs of yourself doing random poses?
Yeah, there's quite a lot. Yeah. I think my favourite one was when we were working for Burrell recently. And I dressed up as a Roman potter.
Oh, brilliant!
So I put
That's what. So to explain the Burrell what's
collection.
The Burrell collection is up in Glasgow, and David's been working on a number of illustrations that will sit with the permanent exhibition, various phases of history. But yeah, so you dressed up as a Roman potter.
Yeah, I think one of the pieces was about their displays was like some old fragments of pottery, and then the process involved in how they made the slip clay and all of that, and they wanted a nice drawing of a potter on the wheel. So I kind of like mocked up with a stool and a bowl on the top, dressed myself up in a what do you call it? A tunic, but a
like a
I'm not sure. I just want to see the picture.
Toga.
That's
all.
So I kind of wrapped a bed sheet half around me, posed,
I
and
feel
then
like this is you could have a separate Instagram account just for the reference photographs.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure I did a few years ago, quite a few years ago. Put things like that on Twitter, but that's gone now. But there's quite a few, and then I think they're quite amusing.
Because I think you've worked with 2 or 3 museums. So Ely Museum we've done recently. Another one that maybe I can't mention the name of yet because I don't think it's out yet, and the Burrell collection. And having spoken to the people that are commissioning that work, that's why they love you. Yeah, they love the fact that they can throw anything at you in terms of subject matter or something historical with very little reference material, and you'll somehow be able to interpret that and come out with a really kind of accurate illustration of what they're trying to portray.
Yeah, I think on those kind of projects, you start with an asset library of a real mixture of quality, really old stuff, new stuff that just doesn't sit well together. But through illustration, you're just building it into this really nice body of work. Yeah,
I think those jobs that we've had recently, especially Burrell, have been some of my favourite stuff I've worked on in a long time. It's that mixture of research, bringing things to life, in a museum setting and knowing that it's going to have some permanence to it. It's
yeah, there's something lovely about the amount of eyes that will be on that over the next couple of decades.
Yeah.
So when you look back at your university work, can you see the work you do now? Is it similar or is it very different? Or
I can definitely see the transition that there was.
Yeah.
I think the work I did at university, I mean, I kind of did 2 years of not doing anything.
Yeah. Sorry, what was the course title? Was it illustration?
So I did foundation at Loughborough University first.
Yeah.
And then I did 3 years at Bristol UWE, which is their School of Art. And 2 years was just being at university, not really concentrating too much. And I guess in hindsight, you go there to do that in some respects, but at the same time, we had such amazing facilities and some really, really good tutors, which had left, by the time I was in my third year. And you almost, I don't know, think that really could have made more of it.
Yeah.
But when I got into my third year, I spent most of my project time doing observational drawings, reportage, illustration, taking lots of photographs. I used to really enjoy sitting out in a spot and recording conversations and then listening back, incorporating that into the work. So it had a really loose feel to the drawings, but a good sense of space. So I liked, kind of trying to understand what each place had about it. What was the thing it had going for it, and almost trying to, I wouldn't say trying to cliche that, but just trying to kind of pull out one or two things that really exemplified that place. And so I'd go all around different places in Bristol, and my kind of final project was small sketchbook drawings, and then I would enlarge these onto these really big pieces of paper, and they had like some flat colour, lots of negative space, and then just pulling out small details in pencil.
And I remember lots of sort of hand rendered text used to write a lot as
lots
well.
and lots of conversations, just annotations of what was around. So when I started working, the first few years of working professionally, amongst doing other jobs, I kind of retained that real loose style to it. But I think having departed from that after doing, the football work, I always tried to keep sketchbooks going, which were still very much in line with how I was working. I think the work's matured a lot since then. It's become a lot more. It's just got a lot more confidence to it, I think. So yeah, I think I'm at a point. Definitely have seen that transition. I can then look back, but at the same time, I mean, it looks very different. And there's a part of me that still wishes I could do a lot more of that observational drawing. That that kind of not quite so serious and nailed down style of work.
And in terms of your process, you're still analog, as it were.
Yeah, it's all hand drawn, everything in pencil. Yeah.
Have you got is there one brand of pencil that you use?
Yeah, I used the Pentel mechanical lead, the black one. I think you spoke to somebody else on podcast. They said they used the same ones. Was it Emily? I think.
Yeah, I think it might be Emily Robertson. Yeah.
Were you at university with Emily?
No, I didn't. But I met Emily when I was working at YCN. She was doing a similar thing for a few months.
I knew you knew her before Handsome Frank.
Yeah, so we used to hang out a bit and just talk crap and
But in terms of your process, I mean, obviously we've seen illustrators move over to iPads and Cintiq tablets. I'm actually quite shocked at how many people have brought them now because they're not cheap. Have you tried them? Are you tempted at all? No.
I've got no interest.
I really like that, I have to say. I think clients still really like it. I still can, I think, look at a piece of work and know whether it's actually analog or digital.
Yeah, I just really, really enjoy the process of working with your hands and actually making that physical mark. I just don't think you can replicate it. I'm sure you can, but perhaps it doesn't give you the personal satisfaction, or it doesn't have that. You don't have that connection with it. Maybe.
Yeah, tangible. And as you mentioned, you're off grid here, so that's less power consumption.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much a tablet's going to use up, but I guess every watt counts, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We'll come back to that because I think that's a really interesting topic, but we're going to talk about that a bit more in a bit. I wanted to ask you about cycling, and because one of the things I know you love cycling, and I always hold you up as an example of somebody who took something they loved and had an interest in, did lots of drawings of it, and then subsequently got asked by brands to draw that thing. So it's almost like you did the self-initiated work, and that led to commission work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that and who you've worked with in the cycling world.
Well, it started off with Magma Books. Must be 10 years ago, I think, and we kind of mutually decided to do a series of posters. They had a few ideas, and kind of they wanted my input on it. And it was the jerseys poster, jerseys print, and then a bike print. And
Tour de France, or was it Tour de France, or was it all of the races?
It was just a mixture of different old, kind of vintage historic teams, and then yellow jersey, pink jersey, the World Championship, that kind of thing. And I really enjoyed the research on that. And that's been, I guess, thankfully updated quite a lot over the years, because I think looking back at it, it was quite naive in the kind of selections that we made between us. And that took off really, really well. And that led on to another round of posters with Magma. I then subsequently worked on a Tour de France print with Rafa for the centenary Tour de France.
Yeah.
It was like a limited edition print. I had I was given like a decade of the Tour de France to just do a poster which kind of represented that 10-year period. And that's then led on to loads and loads of editorials with cycling magazines. Oh, goodness me. And recently we worked with, I don't know if I can say, but just doing some new prints for another client who's going to go up, quite famous.
Cycling related fashion brand, should we say for now?
Yeah, and I think it's that mixture of that research, that kind of collector's mentality element to it, that cataloguing of the kind of different styles through the ages. That I think cycling is one of these things. It's an aesthetic sport in a way. It's when you see the Tour de France, it's such a visual impact in the landscape, and then you mix in with that all the advertising and the jerseys, and it's just this mixture of like this scrum of colour, and it's just
vibrancy. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that kind of really captures me. Collecting and cataloguing things really captures me. I really have an interest in that, and so it's this kind of combination of all these factors that it's something I've really enjoyed working on.
I just think it's a great example, and any sort of aspiring or young illustrators listening to this, if there's something that interests you and there's something that you want to draw, you shouldn't necessarily wait for someone to ask you to do it. I think if you get off your own back and draw it, and people see it, then that will lead to things.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you're right. I think it has to have some relevance, though. If you're doing work which you're doing purely for your own enjoyment, I think it then all depends on how you're then putting it out there.
Yeah.
I think what you've also done there is, rather than just draw one bike, you've kind of, or one jersey, you've turned it into these mini series that I call them, that straight away the impact of that set of illustrations is just far greater than just one or two drawings.
I think you're right. Yeah, it's that like the plant illustrations, the botanist illustrations, like the 18th, 19th century ones.
Yeah.
It was that kind of thing that was like the inspiration, or I really like that aesthetic, that
collecting almost, cataloguing.
And then there are other people who've done really nice similar things. So I don't want to kind of make it sound like I've done something unique. I think it just captured the imagination at the right time. The right people saw the initial work, because I think I was doing some sketches and doing cycling stuff before the Magma, but it's kind of hard. I can't really remember whether it was this organic thing that just came from me, or whether there was some input. So it's, I don't know. Do you think it's just come together? And
But it's always good. I take a lot of joy in seeing illustrators work with the brands that they have a real affinity with.
Yeah.
And I think it really brings out the best in an artist if they're working with a client, or working on a campaign for a product they actually use or they believe in, or something a cause that they care about. You sort of see that extra level of care and effort in the work almost.
Yeah, I think you take a lot more interest in the details of it personally, and you're personally invested in it being true. You don't want to take any shortcuts, like just on the smallest detail of something. You know that there's someone else out there that has that level of interest as you, and if you're not going to spot those mistakes, someone else will.
Someone else will. Yeah. They'll let you know.
I feel like you've got a nice balance between the sort of editorial jobs and the bigger projects that you have a real enjoyment in, like the books you've been doing as well.
Yeah, no, I think you're.
Do you think that's a
right.
good? It's necessary to get that balance to kind of keep you sane.
Yeah, I think in terms of even just workflow, you need it, because if all you're doing is, editorial work, 4-day deadlines, 2-day deadlines, whatever, week deadline, one after the other, I think it can, just wear you down a little bit.
Yeah.
And similarly, I think it may be even worse if all you're doing is projects, because some projects can last a year. And it's very, very slow movement back and forth. You suddenly get a huge amount of work, and then you're waiting a long time for feedback. And so to have a polar opposite on either of those, it's just it's not very involved way of working. It can become quite frustrating. So yeah, finding that balance has been really good, and I think that's come in the last certainly in the last 3 or 4 years, I reckon.
And we were saying that the demand for hand drawn, hand rendered work is really high at the moment. Which again, as we were talking about technique, I feel like graduates at the moment they just gravitate towards iPads, and maybe the advice is to not pick up the paper. And I find that really interesting, because for an illustration course, but tutors, when we were studying, the fundamentals were what was important. No matter what you did, no matter what your output was, you always had to start with drawing on paper, in a sketchbook, or recording in some way, as opposed to straight onto a tablet. And I think it's really hard in terms of workflow to start off drawing by hand and then reproduce that on your iPad or your tablet, and then that's your final work. So I'm assuming that if people are working that way, it's from scratch on the iPad. Yeah.
And I find that really odd that that's being pushed onto students.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't want to focus too much on universities and stuff, but if you think that one of the reasons why you go to these universities is you have access to all their facilities, but in lockdown, as everyone's been working remotely, that just hasn't been possible. Yeah. So I really, really hope and encourage all aspiring illustrators to not pick up a tablet to begin with.
Get your hands dirty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, my favourite stuff from university was life drawing. We used to do printmaking, and it all hands-on things where you're having to, you're looking at something, you're translating it onto a piece of paper, or with brushes or ink or whatever, and then you've also got a mechanical process such as screen printing or etching, as your output. And I think it gives you a really good grounding in just that kind of a basic ability to I don't know, to illustrate, I suppose, to
get the basics right.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that most people now, especially through Hans and Frank, most people have a really good foundation in that. Especially speaking to people, you rarely get to meet up, but when you do, it's really interesting talking to people about their backgrounds, and I think we all seem to share that, that kind of common foundational way of working, even if the final work looks very different.
Yeah, totally.
One of the things that dawned on me about you is how little you engage with social media.
Yeah, well,
and I think that's really interesting, because I think there's a lot of pressure, and a lot of illustrators feel they really have to do it, and you just haven't. And I think that's kind of cool. And I wonder how you feel that's affected your career, and if you think it's helped or hindered in any way.
Well, I used to, I did try I used to have quite a. I used to do Twitter maybe 6 years ago, and that became too much of a personal thing. I invested too much of my own thoughts into it.
Yeah.
And it should have just been strictly a work thing. So after a while, I got rid of it, because then also it's always in your back in your mind. I'll check it. What's someone written? I'll reply to this. I'll scroll through and see what someone else has done. And it just becomes too much of you're just preoccupied with it. And I think having that, in your thinking day in, day out, it's not a healthy place to be. So I got rid of that. Then I had an Instagram account, which soon after opening it got hacked by someone.
Oh, I remember that.
And I think it's still visible, and it's basically used as I don't know.
Is it to sell Ray-Bans?
No, it's like Eastern European models.
Okay. Oh, right.
Like it's a spam account, and so it's got follows 10,000 accounts of let's say fitness women in inverted commas. But Instagram won't let me delete it, because whoever hacked it changed the email address and changed the password. And so Instagram, you try and get into Instagram, it's like trying to get in touch with, I don't know,
God.
Yeah. God. Well, I think that's probably more attainable, to be honest. And they're like, no, you have to tell us the password and the email address so we can shut it down. It's like, but that's what they've changed. Anyway, so I opened a second Instagram account, which I actually had quite a good, putting up work in progress and then printed it. It was quite enjoyable for a while. And it just vanished. Got deleted through inappropriate content or something.
What did you upload?
I don't know. I didn't get any warning, nothing, no explanations, no way of finding out. So I can only imagine either it's got spammed, flagged by someone, or a client, for whatever reason, they've said, oh no, that's copyright or something. But I didn't get told about it. But maybe that was, I don't know, 2 years ago.
So you took that as a sign to get off the train.
And the thing is, I really didn't enjoy doing it anyway.
Yeah, it's the kind of,
just not my thing.
There's definitely a category of people that just find it that necessary evil.
Yeah,
because it is a great visual medium.
Yeah, and in terms of do I think it's hindered or anything? To be honest, I've never engaged with it. And when I did engage with it, I didn't do it to try and get work. It was just documenting, what I'd done, sketchbooks or.
I just think it's quite interesting that you don't feel that need to kind of hustle, which is a word I hate.
Yeah.
But you don't feel that need to constantly promote and put stuff out there, and it, to my mind, it's not in any way affected your ability to
I'll
be a
honest,
successful, busy artist.
I couldn't care less what anyone thinks or says or anything. I'm not trying to impress anyone. I just want to work how I want to work and work with clients who who enjoy that type of work.
It must be quite
simple.
nice not to be on that treadmill.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just don't even really want to engage with it. I think it can just become all encompassing, and it can really, just kind of cloud your judgment of what's kind of actually going on in reality. If all you're doing is kind of, I get that it's a useful reference for things, but you can become so obsessed with it.
But again, I wonder if you're not looking at it and you're not looking at other people's work and you're not constantly comparing yourself and thinking, oh, should I be doing that or this? And look who they've worked with. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's led to your work having a bit more of an organic, original voice, because you're not constantly looking at other people and being influenced. Yeah,
I think you might be right. I mean, I certainly used to be really, really keen to keep up to date with certain people. Like, who've they worked? How does their style look in this piece or whatever?
Yeah,
I think early on that's probably, I think most illustrators get caught up in that, and it's not a healthy place to be, constantly trying to emulate or compare yourself to other people, because it just doesn't. You can't do anything about it. You can't change it.
I think maybe that's just something that. As you get older, you just kind of realise that those things don't actually matter.
Absolutely,
You're just sort of comfortable where you are and what you're doing.
It's quite funny. Again, when I was on my foundation course, Michelle Thompson, who was, obviously one of your illustrators, she was one of our tutors, and we used to, like, me and a couple of people who would, we'd sit around and work together. It would be like, oh, let's try and do something really similar to what Michelle does because her work's so cool. And it became a bit of a joke. And like looking back at it, there's some pieces which I think she'd be quite proud of. She'd have done.
Oh, nice.
I'm sure I've told her that. Yeah. But I think you really can fall into that trap of just trying to emulate somebody. And
I mean, that's another thing with people trying to emerge in the industry. If you're constantly looking at what everyone else is doing, that is massively affecting your work and your outcome.
Yeah, and I guess it can become incredibly demoralising if all you're seeing is the big projects kind of being put online. You're thinking, well, why aren't I getting anything like that?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I mean, you got to start somewhere. Some people are very fortunate and they just get them from the beginning, and others kind of work up to it.
I think this whole idea of you being not really on the internet and not engaging brings us round quite nicely to where we're sat right now. So to give it a bit of context, we drove today. I think we said at the start we are a mile from the nearest house.
About that.
And we're sat in a cottage which is in an acre of land, and David and his wife are basically moving towards a self-sufficient lifestyle. Is that right?
Trying to.
Tell us a bit about that.
It certainly wasn't planned that way, I don't think. So we lived in London for going on 10 years. And at the time it was, like everybody, kind of worked in London. We had lots going on there. But we kind of got to the point where neither of us had to be working there anymore. So we were kind of looking to move out, and we moved up to Suffolk, near the coast. And I guess we were intending to be there for kind of long term. And then 2020 came around, and we had some pretty set plans of how we wanted to, kind of what the future. We had a son then, newborn, and we kind of, thought we want to stay here. Our intention was, to travel during the summers and local schools. And when all the lockdowns happened, it just really kind of shook us out of that. And we thought that we kind of always in the back of our minds, we wanted to be doing our own thing. And it was just that kick up the backside. It's
bit
like,
of a catalyst.
do you know what? Yeah, let's just go off and do our own thing. Do we really want to be relying on what's going on in the world around us to kind of dictate how we live our life? So we spent a year looking for somewhere, and this place came up. And it's completely off-grid cottage. It was an old railway crossing cottage. So there was a railway that ran from Kingston to Fakenham, and it ran right through now where the house is. So this was at the level crossing, and so it was built in, I guess, the late 1800s. But because it was kind of in the middle of nowhere, there's no water, there's no gas, there's no electricity, it's just almost like it could have been left for 100 years, and you just kind of, it's got a heating system. We've put in solar, and it's
so you've got solar panels which are producing enough electricity to power the house. Mm-hmm. You've got a well for water.
30 metre down well. So we've basically got a lake, like a what do you call an aquifer?
Yeah, and does that have to be treated?
No, so it's filtered through from the village, which is probably, 50 metres up. So it filters through the ground. But we've got quite a lot of agriculture around us. So we put it through a filter in the house. Yeah. Because there's quite a lot of runoff from the fields. So water comes out of the well. That's 30 metres down. All the heating is off of coal and wood. Yeah.
So you're cutting your own wood?
Yeah, cutting your own wood, planting a coppice in the garden, which 10 years' time will be ready to harvest. Gas, bottles of gas. We've got a generator backup for the batteries, and now we're trying to grow. All our own food on site.
Talk us through that then. So you've got vegetables.
Yeah, you've got, I think, 60-foot polytunnel. Then another veg patch, which is pretty big. We've got an area which has got an orchard in it, so lots of fruit trees. And then we've got several flocks of chickens. We've got some layers. We've got some meat chickens, which we kind of like hatch in a kind of batch of 15, process those, they go in the freezer. And then the next plan is to get a couple of pigs in, and then some sheep, hopefully in springtime.
So what % of your food are you generating yourselves at the moment?
I reckon the last year we've done about 50%.
Okay. And you're moving towards...
Hopefully moving towards up to 100%.
Yeah, amazing.
Brilliant. And you enjoying the journey?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't take the credit for it, I'll be honest with you. But no, it's brilliant. I mean, it's so nice being somewhere like this, surrounded by beautiful woodland and countryside.
But you hadn't done this before in terms of raising animals
No, not so much. Even when we were in London, we had a little veg patch. I think quite a lot of people do, and it's always something we've wanted to do long term. And it's just the right place, the right time came up, and absolutely no trepidation in doing it. And
I was good because these are skills that our ancestors all would have had. These are quite natural, but they're kind of lost skills, right? So are you doing lots of research, or is it just pretty natural, just
trial and error?
Yeah, no, I think it's just read a few books and do it. There's no magic sauce to it. It just I mean, Sarah's brilliant. She's really good with she's done food and gardening for years.
Sarah's your wife.
Sarah's my wife, for years and years. So she's got a good sense of it. But it's really just doing like the fundamentals, I guess, just knowing when to plant, when to harvest, how to grow them from seed, how to then save the seeds for the next year, getting the compost right, bringing in loads of muck. Got stables up the road, so we're getting loads of horse muck from there, and then with the animals, I mean the chickens, we've had chickens in the last house for for maybe 5 years.
Do you slaughter the chickens yourself? And
we get them, do them out next to where you're parked. Just like spend a day. We did some last week. Maybe spend a day, get 6 or 7 done, and then over a course of a month, that's the whole lot sorted out in the freezer, and then probably do the next lot early summer, I think.
And there was a goose out there that was earmarked for Christmas dinner, but it never happened.
Yeah, no. The trouble is, we gave it a name.
Never name the animals.
Yeah, and once
not dinner.
Yeah, that's the problem. Once you've got a child who kind of likes the goose and likes saying the goose's name, it becomes difficult. Yeah,
there's some great life skills that you must be teaching your son as well.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He spent like all the time outside helping out, digging in the dirt. He absolutely loves it.
Well, he did tell us on arrival today what his favourite brand of tractor is. So
yeah. I mean, he's got the knowledge, I think.
That's good.
Yeah, just groom him to be young farmers, really.
And what's the biggest mistake you've made so far? I'll ask you your biggest success as well, but I'm always interested to know.
I think the only mistake would be not to do it sooner, really.
Really?
Yeah, I think nothing's gone wrong at all.
You survived the storm last week.
Yeah, a few trees have come down in the woods, but nothing major. Yeah.
Amazing. Right. I'm kind of jealous, to be honest.
Yeah. It's I think there's many people who would are sat there wanting to make a move like this, but not brave enough. So that's really nice that you've kind of taken that leap.
Yeah, I think you've got to have the right mindset to do it. I mean, even when we were in London, we were it's great. You've got loads to do, loads of friends there. It's vibrant. It's but we always wanted to be in control of what we were eating, what we were doing. We wanted to live in a place where you could really care for what was around you, what was in your immediate environment, and have that sense of community, which, in a bit of a juxtaposition, you come to somewhere where there's very few people living around, but the sense of kind of helping each other out here is so much stronger than, living on a street in Lewisham with hundreds of people around.
Yeah, I'd say one of the biggest problems where I live in London is the amount of people that just don't care about their environment. It's,
and you can care as much as you like, and you can live in a bubble, but at the end of the day, you still got to walk down your street, and it's nice to be able to share that experience with other people, and if that's not being reciprocated, it become kind of, it nags at you after a while. So we were just never quite happy with that, and we've now, I think, probably found the place where maybe
there was,
should have been a while ago.
Even tiny things like you've left your son's bike right outside by the gate, which if you still lived in London would have disappeared within 5 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we don't lock anything. Cars never locked. Nothing's really ever locked away. I mean, that being said, someone did steal a chicken from us around Christmas time.
Mr. Fox?
No, it wasn't Mr. Fox.
I heard this story. Didn't they come in through the Christmas tree field?
They did. Yeah, it's really weird.
Way.
So there's Christmas trees growing in the woodland, just next to where our boundary is, and the guy who owns that when I had dinner, I was away for the night, and Sarah said to me, the guy's just come here and accused me of stealing his Christmas trees, and I've not touched them. And he basically came to the door and was like, you've been taking my Christmas trees. And she just said to him, do you want to come in and have a cup of tea and sort it out? But what ended up happening, someone had come in through the woods, you go 100 metres down the lane, there's another kind of entrance in through the woods, and dug up, I don't know, 4 or 5 small Christmas trees and went. The next day, we went in to let the chickens out in the morning. There was one missing. These are the meat chickens. So whoever had taken the Christmas trees had looked in and seen the chickens, and they must have known what they're doing, because you've got to be pretty stupid to take a laying hen. They know
their chickens.
They knew what they were. So I thought, all right, I'll have that for dinner tomorrow or whatever. So
you've got poachers.
They're poultry poachers. But that's the only thing, and so I think it's probably
isolated.
Incident. So,
and you've got Bob the dog here to protect you.
Yeah, ferocious guard dog. So yeah, I think we're
just
all right.
to give listeners a bit of visual context. Bob is asleep by the fire. I don't think he's too worried about poachers. No.
Yeah, and he did give you a little treat in the kitchen earlier, didn't he?
Bob did let off a terrible fart on arrival.
So if that's not a deterrent, I don't know what it is.
Right, well, I think we're going to go for a little wander around now and record some ambient animal noises and see the small holding. But thank you for chatting to us, and it's been great, and thank you for inviting us down to see what's happening down here.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's been really good to catch up.
Great, thank you very much.
So David's going to show us around the small holding, some ambient noise. So how much land is there here?
So we've got an acre around the house, and it's in 3 bits. So you've got this bit here, which is, I guess, an orchard, you could call it.
Yeah.
Of sorts. That pear tree apparently is the oldest pear tree in Norfolk.
Wow,
really? What a claim.
At that.
It's over 200 years old.
Did you know it was a pear tree when you first brought it?
The previous owners were pretty keen to tell us, that kind of information.
It's not that big for 200 years of growth.
It's got quite a big trunk on it. Though,
yeah,
John,
quite
let's
a
be
wide
honest.
trunk. We're looking at a very wide pear tree here.
Yeah. Didn't get many pears off it though.
Nice roses.
Yeah, I think most of that's coming out, Tom.
Oh. And you can probably hear the geese now.
Mm-hmm. You're going to have to step over that. Trip hazard, sorry. That's the well. That's about 30 metres down there. So all the water comes out the well. So we're off-grid on everything. So there's no water, electric, or gas or anything here.
So these solar panels on the house.
They're the old ones. So that stuff doesn't work anymore. We've put in new ones over there on that framing.
Yeah.
And then there's one on that roof of that shed as well.
And you're totally off-grid?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
for everything.
So how handy were you when you first moved here, or have you just?
Yeah, all right. Yeah. Quite enjoyed it. I
saw your Makita on the way out.
Yeah.
Tom likes drills.
Of course. So I put all of that in. Like we did all that ourselves, and
Are they hungry?
No, they're just.
Here come the geese.
Aggressive.
Is this territorial or hunger?
So there's 5 geese. And they've just started making a nest, so they're probably going to lay eggs soon.
And what's
They're being
so what's the?
Yeah.
You're keeping them for the eggs, or?
We were going to keep them to keep the grass down.
Yeah.
And get some eggs and maybe hatch and sell them. We were going to have one for Christmas, but we couldn't do it.
Oh.
Okay, right.
But that's why we had
Which
chickens
of the
instead.
5 was earmarked?
I saw one limping.
Yeah, one of them's had the leg. The white one was going to be the Christmas because
Ah.
he's the most boisterous and
Lucky escape.
yeah. But they're getting older now, so
Getting past their best.
they're not going to be too good.
And what other animals do we have?
So we've got 4 different types of chicken.
They're following us.
So we've got layers, which are these white ones with the black. That's Sussex. So we've got not. Gosh. So we got.
We're being followed.
Keep talking.
Hang on.
This is podcast gold,
Try to
guys.
shoot 'em away.
This is podcast gold.
That's it. That'll sort them out.
Okay.
Chickens.
Yeah, so
have chickens.
you got 9 layers, which are the Sussex over there. Then this one that's one of our cockerels, and we've got another group of chickens which are breast chickens, which are French breed. Where they should be over there somewhere.
Okay, I think breast the place rather than chicken breast.
No, they're BRESSE. Or I'm not sure. Yeah, they're quite a well-known French
breed.
They're meant to be really good, like a really good meat bird. It's the cockerel that's on the French rugby team. It's that.
Oh yeah,
that
yeah,
one.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
And then these kind of ugly-looking fat ones, they're cobs, which are like a meat bird. So they're not actually that old, and they grow really quickly. So we've got 15 of them at the moment.
And what's the plan for them?
They'll be eaten.
They're too cute.
Yeah, well, they're pretty smelly, and when you got 15 of them.
Yeah.
And these are Christmas trees here, are they?
So we had all this area on your left, that was a Christmas tree plantation which we sold at Christmas time. We were just selling them at the gate, and this in the woods here was planted previously by the people who lived here before, and they used to have people in, like a cut your own Christmas tree type thing. So we didn't do that Christmas just gone, but we might be doing it, in the next few years. And in the third area there were another load of Christmas trees which we've taken out. So plan is this area here has all been fenced off. We're going to put another one across the middle and hopefully get some pigs in this rough bit up here.
Yeah.
And then that'll be separated off here. And then here we're going to get some, I think, 3 sheep in, small sheep, lambs to fatten up for next early winter.
What's the strangest thing that you have found since moving here?
Well, funny enough, it used to be a railway cottage. And we have found things like old bits of track, bits of like funnel off of a train was just in the ground, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. So the line used to run where the car is, John's car is, all the way through along the Poddy Tunnel. And that was Kingsland to Fakenham train line, which I think got taken down in the 50s. And this used to be where the crossing was, the level crossing. So there was a barrier that went down right by the kitchen door, and the old post is still in the ground.
Have you got photographs of how it was?
No, there isn't anything really. I think the next one along, which is about 5 miles away, similar to this, has been kind of like done up as it should have been, originally restored. And they're kind of like dotted along the line. If you kind of follow a straight line from Kingston to Fakenham, I think there's like 8 or 9 of buildings similar to this.
And what is the nearest house? I can't see a house.
About a mile away in either direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are you going to grow in the polytunnel?
Polytunnel has got, I think, it's got had lots of vegging over the summer. We did a lot of potatoes, just things to like store over winter. And then we've got this big veg bed outside, and cabbages, things, the standard stuff. But I think we did about 50% of all the things we had last year we grew here.
Brilliant.
And then the plan then is to have the meat as well. So we'll just be looking after ourselves if it all goes to plan.
I think the only thing you're missing is a big trampoline.
big trampoline. It wouldn't have lasted very well in the wind last week, would it? It'd be probably at a neighbour's house a mile away by now.
My kids really want a trampoline, so that's all I can think about.
So yeah, do you want to have a
silver wander
around? We'll go back through there. And it's got a planning permission for camping in here as well.
Oh, okay, is that something you'd like to do then?
Yeah, well, we got a trailer recently, a flatbed one over there, which we were going to build like a cabin on top of.
Nice.
And rent that out. So there's already a like a cesspit where that drain cover is, just by the hedging. So I'm going to build like a
And how much of the work are you
and
doing? All the work?
Yeah, doing everything.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's
doing
impressive.
it all.
You're still going to find time to be an illustrator, right?
Well, yeah. I'm just trying to rush through jobs really, just to get the important stuff done.
You got to finish the job so you can go and dig the cesspit.
Yeah. Well, I've been quite well practiced to rush through. The trick is to make it look like things take longer than they actually do.
If any clients are listening, David does spend a lot of care and attention on his work.
So, yes,
we're being followed. We're being pursued by 5.
Yeah, they're relentless.
Just also add,
as soon as you turn your back on them, they'll have you. And that dog is going to get it as well. So we better let him come through.
Come on, Bob.
Yeah, look at them come through.
Pretty vicious.
So Bob the dog is now being attacked by the geese.
They are bastards, aren't they?
And if you'd like to know more about Handsome Frank and Aratus, check out our website, handsomefrank.com. Thanks very much for listening.
Handsome Frank. Handsome Frank.